Hey, good people. I know it's after lunch, but what you're not going to do is act like you're sleeping. So hold on, we're going to do this again. Hold on, you guys. Britta, okay. Hey, good people. Hey, good people. I got to have that. So thank you. I am honored to be here. Bless you. I'm super grateful. I am excited about the opportunity to see this wonderful collective. And had life not been doing its thing in lifing, I would have been able to join you yesterday. But I want to just take a moment because I think sometimes we forget to take a moment to embrace the moment. So I just want you to pause for a moment and be in and take in this moment because this moment is special. And I want you to think about how special this moment is. So, all right, there's your moment. So as Sammy said, I worked at Pixar. So I worked at Pixar for about 7 years and left about a year ago. And Pixar was, as I said to someone recently, everything you would imagine it to be. I was working as the chief diversity officer at Expedia in Seattle and was contacted about this opportunity, a newly created role at Pixar. And so if you know me for more than 2 seconds, you know I will talk to a rock. So I'm like, hey, I'll come talk to you about it because I think it's important work. But what I was most intrigued about as they presented the opportunity to me and then ultimately the offer was it was a chance to impact lives far beyond my lifetime. And that was meaningful for me. It was an opportunity to work with filmmakers to create stories that have resonance. That was important to me. It was an opportunity to help develop a culture where everyone had a sense of membership. That was important to me. So I said, heck yeah, let's do it, as I often do, kind of blindly, but that was okay, we did it. And I had a wonderful time at Pixar, but I think the reason why Pixar was so cherished for me is that it aligned with one of my many life mottos. Sammy shared one of them, the shine anyway, but another one of my mottos is to make more deposits than withdrawals. And I really had an opportunity looking back on Pixar to see that I was successful and I made deposits, both in the people that I worked with, the community that we served, but as I said, most importantly, in the films that we created and produced. So I'm really proud of the time there. When I think about it in reflection, I think part of the reason why I was successful there is because I'm curious. Now, I'm not just the basic curiosity girl. That's not me. You know, I have a question or I want to test or taunt. That's not me. I literally have questions because I want to understand context and I want to know. And so oftentimes I'd go into the story room with the filmmakers and they'd be pitching a story or talking about ideas with a story trust. And I'd be the one like, wait, but why? Well, how come? And I really genuinely wanted to understand the character arc. So much so that for those of you who've seen Toy Story 4, I will let you in on a little secret. So there's a character in Toy Story 4 called Trixie, and Trixie is a triceratops. And so if you've seen Toy Story 4, and if you've seen it, you'll know. If you haven't, no spoiler alert needed. But Trixie is a triceratops, and a new toy in Toy Story 4 is being introduced into the fold. And it's not a toy that we would all necessarily know. And so there were a lot of questions. Mr. Potato had questions. The bear had questions. It's like, who is this toy? And so they were peppering Woody with all these questions. But my girl, Trixie said, I don't have a question. I have all the questions. And that is me. I have all the questions. So if you spend any time with me, you know I'm going to be asking you questions. And I think that really enabled part of my success at Pixar for sure. I'm also someone who will tell you the truth. Straight up, no chaser. I think that helped me at Pixar. So much so that a few weeks ago, I had a call from a filmmaker who I really respect and is immensely creative. And the filmmaker called and said, hey, I'm really struggling with this project, and it is off the rails. It feels rudderless. And if you all know anything about creating content, that is not what you want your project to be, is rudderless. So he said he felt that way, and he said, and so I asked him, I said, well, what kind of feedback are you getting about it? Because oftentimes as the creative, you're a little harder on yourself. And so I said, well, tell me the feedback that you're getting. And so he said, Britta, to be honest with you, it is a meatless sandwich. It is a mystery meatless sandwich. Right. So he said, you know the sandwich feedback method, right? And he said, it's the bad news wedged in between the good, and you're supposed to be able to digest it. He said, I have no idea what they're telling me. So because I don't know what they're telling me, I don't know what to do. And unfortunately, because of that, there's a whisper campaign of me not being receptive to feedback. So I was like, well, that's not good. I said, well, pitch your story to me. Let me hear your project. So he pitches it, and it's not what I expected, but I listened. And at the end, I had a lot of questions because I'm tricksy. So I said, person's name, what's your want? And I purposely asked the question that way because I wanted to have an enlarged conversation. I didn't say, what's your character want? I said, what's your want? And so he very quickly said, well, I want the character to be beloved, and I want the film to be successful. We're on Zoom. I'm like, for real? Like, that's what, so he laughed and he chuckled and he said, oh, crap, I know who you are and I don't know why I gave you that, deficient response. He said, I need to think about my want. And I said, but not only do I want you to think about your want, I want you to think about your why. The want for you, the why for you, the want for the character, and the why for the character. Because my sense is that's what's missing. I don't know what's motivating the character want. And if you think about it, there's story principles that probably apply quite nicely to our life principles. So at Pixar, our story principles were have a character, the character has a want. That want typically is around some type of goal of achievement, success, fun, whatever. But in the pursuit of that want, they encounter a conflict. And then as we're writing the film or working on it, we try to determine how they're going to resolve that conflict, how they're going to anticipate their response to that conflict, how are they going to prepare to respond and recover. So as I was talking to my pal, I was asking him those things because he was quite familiar with that process. But in doing so, it really made me reflect on the parallels between that and our lives. I also asked him before we hung up, I said, tell me who's on your story trust. And the Story Trust at Pixar is a group of artists who rides shotgun, ride or die, 10 toes down with you, selflessly to make sure that your film is successful. They could be working on their own film, but they devote and commit selflessly to your film's success because they believe that collective success, everybody wins. And so I said to him, who's your story trust? And he paused and got a little defensive, and he said, I don't have a story trust. He said, you might recall that I started working on this project during the pandemic, and it was hard to build relationships and to build community because it was a pandemic. Another moment of reflection, because I thought about how many people, how many professionals, how many leaders have missed the opportunity to have series of truth tellers in their trust, who are helping them make decisions about the why that's sitting beneath their want, who are helping them figure out how they're going to respond when things happen, when there's conflict. And so I suggested to him a few people that he might want to consider for the story trust. But again, I'm reminded of what the application is to life. So you all are all high achievers. You're all super successful. I'm going to ask you, who's your story trust? Who's your trust? Who do you trust unequivocally to tell you straight, no chaser truth about what's going on? And if you're interrogating the want in your careers and the wants in your lives, what's the why that's sitting beneath it? And will your story trust or your trust tell you the truth about it? I want to leave you with 3 things. Number 1, what's the why that's sitting beneath your wants? And I think that climbing the corporate ladder, getting the corporate office, look, I'm straight up and honest. I will tell you I did it. I did it with myopic commitment sometimes because my want was that achievement. But I also realized that I had conflict. There were some things that I lost in the process. And so I encourage you to think about and interrogate your want and interrogate the why that's sitting beneath it. The second thing I would ask you to do is think about what conflicts might ensue as a result of that want that you have. And then the third thing, proactively determine how you might anticipate your response. What's your bounce back? How do you recover from that conflict? Because it's important for us to think about it on the front end. So Sammy shared with you one of my pithy sayings, and I shared with you another about the deposits. And many of my pithy sayings came from my late grandmother, Grandma Velma, who, despite no longer being here, the world knows her for a number of different reasons. But I'll share with you something that my grandmother said. First of all, I'll tell you I'm the only child of my parents, and I am the firstborn granddaughter or grandchild. So y'all know what that looks like, right? What do you want? It is yours before you can get it out of your mouth, right? And so I would spend the summers with my grandparents in southern Indiana, and on any random day I'd bounce out, and I'd have a whole long list of wants. And my grandmother, in her quintessential grandmother, calm and poised, would say, now, baby. Very wise woman she was. She would say, to have desires without having deposits that help others could lead to disaster. So go back and think about what those wants are. So I leave you with that. Think about your wants. Think about the whys. Think about how you'll negotiate the conflict that will come from them. And think about how you'll respond. So I thank you for your time. I hope I have left deposits. And I challenge you to do the same. Thank you.